and email us your prayer. Give your name and record your prayer. We'll do the rest. Email your prayer to prayerswpky@gmail.com. We'll broadcast a community prayer on this station every day around 10 in the morning and 10 in the evening. Before our morning prayer at 10, we will ring bells as requested by Governor Andy Beshear. We will get through this together.
1580 103.3 WPKY. And of course, I gave a little bit of a hint of what we're doing this morning and actually what we've got going over the next few days and then maybe next couple of weeks is we're going to talk about Fredonia a little bit or a lot of bit because you know what? Not only we got some interesting history, there have been some pretty substantial books in the last year that have come out. And, of course, on the phone this morning, I'm so fortunate to have her, Miss Pam Faughn. How are you this morning?
I'm good this morning.
Well, I hope you've got your coffee.
Well, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I'm ready to talk on Coffee Talk.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I instantly, I know that you all come out with a big old book. What was it, in December?
Yes, we did. We published a 436-page book entitled The Veterans of the Fredonia Valley. We worked on the project for a few years and have veterans in that book all the way from the Revolutionary War up to current day veterans. Wow.
And, of course, one of the things that about that, the reason why I wanted to mention that specifically for a few minutes is there's actually a whole Veterans Memorial going in and a new kind of park location, right?
Yes, it is. I should make note of the point that this book is a publication of our Fredonia Valley Heritage Society.
Oh, okay.
And this memorial that is a new project for us, together with the Fredonia American Legion Post 103, is to create a memorial for veterans and other people in Fredonia Valley. We're going to have a large monument surrounded by a concrete pad. It's going to have engraved bricks with the names of the individual veterans. And in addition to honoring our veterans, we're going to have a couple of additional sections of the park that will honor others, memorialize our first responders, such as police, firemen, EMTs, etc., and another section to honor our corrections officers.
Well, and see, I thought that was really neat that you all were including them as well. I mean, I think that's, they're heroic as well. And I think most people see that. And I hate that, we didn't really, I don't think some of us really thought about it, even correctional officers, till we thought about first responders and, what it meant to be essential. And that, we're looking at a lot of that and at a lot different as far as what a hero looks like.
That's exactly right.
And now the bricks, they're being engraved, right?
Yes, they will be engraved. We have forms that are available to the public to complete. There'll be 3 lines on each brick that they can choose what they want on their brick, and they will be engraved, and they will be placed around the memorial that we are going to purchase a large granite memorial. And then these will be the surrounding on the walkway around the monument.
Oh, wow. Now, see, that sounds pretty substantial to me. Where's this going on at? Where in Fredonia where is this being placed?
Okay, we've been very fortunate to have a lot donated to us by Todd Phelps and Karen Phelps, and it's located on Cassidy Avenue, relatively close to the Fredonia Valley Bank and the Coondog Inn restaurant. It's just a couple of lots up from that.
Okay.
It's right there on Cassidy Avenue, the main drag in Fredonia, one of the main drags.
Well, that'll be easy to find then. And what I like about it is it's easily visible.
Yes, it is. Our initial thought was to do it at the American Legion Park, which is now the Buddy Rogers Park. And the location didn't turn out to be the best. And also, this is a more visible location for people that are just driving through town.
Oh, what do you think or are they do they have a date to shoot for completion? Have they really thought about that, or are they just going to see how it goes?
Well, we've got a goal to have it completed by Veterans Day.
Oh, wow.
November.
Wow.
Now, we don't know. A lot's going on with the pandemic. Things aren't as easy as they could have been. And we're just hoping that we can get the forms all out and get enough interest, and then hopefully we've already started working on the design for the memorial monument, and so it's well in the works.
Well, I'll be honest, Pam. And of course, if you're just joining us this morning on Coffee Talk, Miss Pam Rogers is with us, or Pam Faughn.
That's okay.
I'm going back to maiden names. Is what I'm doing.
That's okay.
But, we were talking about the Veterans Memorial. We're talking about a lot of things about Fredonia. But first, we really wanted to talk about that Veterans Memorial that's going in. And I'll admit, I did not expect to hear you say November.
Well, that's a lofty goal, but we hope to have it ready by then.
I have a feeling that Fredonia has a lot of helping hands, and that's one thing, that every time I ask somebody, what do you, what is it about Fredonia that you love so much? That's one of the things that always pops up is everybody's always willing to pitch in and help, and I think that is kind of a resounding kind of theme throughout everybody.
Yes, it is indeed. There's a lot of things that make Fredonia unique, and that is one of them.
Well, and that's the other part about that. And when you talk about the veterans, do you have any idea how many veterans that Fredonia has had over the years?
Well, I don't know exactly, but we do have this 436-page book, and I must admit I have not counted the individual veterans that are in that book, but there are well over 500 in the book alone, probably up to close to 1,000, and that's just probably a drop in the bucket of the men and women who have actually served from our Fredonia Valley area. When
you think about that, and that's just a powerful number. I mean, because Fredonia, you don't think about Fredonia being, an enormous place. That's one of the charms about Fredonia it's smaller. Of course, that's one of the things I love about it, to be honest. But you don't think about that many veterans from one small location.
Right. Of course, you're talking about going all the way back to the Revolutionary War and all the way up through today. So that can include a large number of people.
Well, and of course, there was a lot of things that kind of led to that too. I mean, anything from trains and, I almost said trains, planes, and automobiles. I'm sure there's a plane in there somewhere, crop duster or something. But, there's been a rich history in Fredonia as far as, even to the Native Americans, the people that have gone through there.
Yes, that is true. Trailer Cheers went right through here.
And of course, what else is, do you think led to that many veterans? Because that's a way of life. And that is something that I think that, Roy Jean and I have talked about this before is the just kind of the instinct that people have in this area to want to serve their country and want to serve their county and just want to be, servants of their community in general, but especially their country. And where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think it comes from a rich heritage of people and generations before us that have always wanted to serve their town, their county, their state, their country. And they just have that instilled in them. It's just a desire to want to help.
Well, I'll tell you, that's one of those things, again, I think that you're right. It gets passed down from mama to daddy and from grandparents to grandchild. And it's something that, that's something that you just have or you don't, I think. And our area just seems to have it in spades. And I'm awfully proud of that. That's something, I guess that goes back to the Veterans Memorial, because really and truly, Fredonia has always been kind of encompassing, especially even to visitors.
Yes, and we like to say Fredonia, but we like to say the Fredonia Valley because the population of the town is a little smaller than most towns, but we have many more people involved in all the activities around Fredonia and the surrounding area, and we call it the Fredonia Valley. So we have a whole lot more people involved in all of our activities than just the population of the town.
Well, now that's been going on for a long time, too. What all is that area? What about some neat little tidbits that people may not know? Because I bet you're the lady that knows about them.
Well, we do have a history of the Fredonia Valley, which is a 550-page book that we did in 2010.
Wow.
And it's got just about everything you'd ever want to know about Fredonia in it and the Fredonia Valley. We named the book The History of the Fredonia Valley, and it encompasses a 6-mile range around Fredonia. And it is just full of anything you could ever want to know. I guess one thing you could say about Fredonia is when you drive into town, there are 3 signs from all directions, and they say on those signs, a small valley with a big heart. Back in the early 2000s, our Fredonia Enhancement Committee had a slogan contest to create a slogan for our town in our Fredonia Valley, and Casey Baker won that with her slogan, a small valley with a big heart. And so that's where I would start with the uniqueness or unusual things about Fredonia. Now, I can go on with some other unique history items if you want me to.
Go for it. I'd love it.
Pam, one of the things that you did at the library when we were up there was the division of the town, the big tree and all of that. Those things were really interesting that you went through that night.
Well, I do have a story about a couple of stories that might encompass some of that. The roads through Fredonia Valley still follow some of the prominent buffalo and Indian trails, the Saline Trace. You may have heard of the Saline Trace.
Oh, wow.
And that was the stagecoach route between Princeton and Fredonia. And it passed right near present-day Fredonia. And there was actually a stagecoach stop here in an area that is now Fredonia at the Crider Tavern. That particular building is still in existence. It's the home of Molly Tabor, and it was built in 1835-ish, and it's still in existence. And the voting precinct was established there in 1835. They first called it Midway because it was midway between Princeton and Salem. And that's the area that eventually became Fredonia. Now, would you like to hear about how Fredonia was actually established?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, in 1835, there was a fellow named Harvey Bigham. You may have heard of him. He later became the first county clerk and circuit court clerk in Crittenden County. And he had a country store right in this area. And he wanted to form a town. And so he wasn't able at first to find any land, but then he found 400 acres of land that he purchased for $4,000. That price was $10 an acre, which at that time was an enormous amount of money. And he in turn sold lots to some of Fredonia's earliest businessmen and home builders and investors. But now, a little fact you might not know is Fredonia was actually first on the street, or the main street, which goes right through town from Princeton to Fredonia, where the Beggins Furniture is located. That street was named Main Street. And that's where all the first businesses and homes from Fredonia were established. That was Fredonia.
Wow. You know, when you think about that back in the day, it's hard to imagine, but...
Sure. Anyway, the way the town got their name is after they sold some lots and established a little strip of the area to become Fredonia, several men met at a business in Fredonia, and Mr. Bigham had laid out a section of town, and they sold the lot. And so they discussed what they were going to name the small town. They came up with a lot of different ideas, but finally, Mr. Harvey Bigham, the man who owned the land, his wife had just given birth to a baby girl, and it was the first child that was born in Fredonia. And he said he would name the baby girl Fredonia if they would name the town Fredonia, and that was what was done. And in years since, we found evidence of Miss Fredonia Bigham. She was married to a Mr. Jeff Tyre and lived in Paducah a great deal of her life.
Well, now, how neat is that? That's something I've never heard.
Yep, well, that's the story.
I need to read the book, right?
You do. You need to get the book and read it.
Right.
That was 184 years ago now. And in 1869, the town was incorporated. Everything was going great. Amid all this prosperity and peace and harmony. And then the railroad came to town. It may be one of the stories that Roy Jean is referring to.
Well,
Let me go ahead?
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The railroad
I wish
came
you
to
could
town.
see me because my mouth is hanging open. I'm enjoying it. Go for it.
Okay. Well, the railroad came to Fredonia in 1887, and the railroad depot and the railroad line was situated a few hundred feet from the actual town of Fredonia. But when the lady who sold them that plot of land for the Fredonia depot, she requested that it be named the Fredonia Depot. There was probably 72 acres separating the Fredonia Depot from the town of Fredonia. Well, then here's what happened. About a month after that depot went in, those 72 acres that separated Fredonia from its depot were purchased by a man named S.H. Cassidy. And I think he was actually from Princeton. I'm not quite sure. But at that time, he lived in Dykesburg. And so he bought all this land and subdivided it, so to speak. We've got a plat of the S.H. Cassidy addition. It says addition to the town of Fredonia. He purchased it for $6,500, and he purchased it for the purpose of building a town. And he wanted to name the town Cassidy, but there was already another Cassidy post office in Kentucky. So he named the town Kelsey for the president of the Ohio Valley Railroad, who had put the railroad through. And it was a separate town. Well, the people of Fredonia didn't like that very much.
I don't bet.
They called it South Fredonia. They never acknowledged it as a separate town. And so here's what happened very shortly after all this. The city fathers of Fredonia didn't take well at all to this prosperity of this new little town. Businesses were booming. They were growing in this new little town between Fredonia and her railroad depot. And they were not happy at all. So they decided they had to do something. The city fathers of Fredonia decided they had to do something about it. They didn't want this little upstart town separating them from their railroad depot. And so this is 1898, they filed a lawsuit to annex Kelsey into Fredonia, which is pretty interesting, I thought, for that day and time.
Well, yeah, that's pretty fancy pants for that day and time.
Well, a big conflict arose after that. And these two towns were side by side, and they were on opposite sides of an annexation lawsuit. So they were in a bitter dispute, and this case went all the way to the Court of Appeals. The local court said that they could not annex Kelsey. Then they went on to the Court of Appeals of Kentucky. The Court of Appeals of Kentucky ruled otherwise. They said, yes, they could annex Kelsey.
Well, I bet that governor got a lot of flack.
Well, it was the whole thing took 4 long years in the Court of Appeals, but finally the town of Fredonia was allowed to annex Kelsey, and then at that point Kelsey became no longer. It was now Fredonia. And the people of Fredonia were very relieved. They were now one town, but the Kelsey people had one request. Now, here was the Kelsey people's request. Okay, you've annexed us, but we want to request one thing. We want you to do everything in your power to keep a saloon out of this section of town. That was in the Fredonia City Minutes. They didn't want a saloon in that section of town. And they did grant, the Fredonia Town Board did grant that request, but at a later time, unfortunately, a saloon sprung up in what was then known as Kelsey.
Well, you know how it goes.
But, one thing that I think is the highlight of how Fredonia is the way that we are now, they had that bitter dispute way back in 1898 all the way up to 1903. But once that final decision was made by the courts, they became one town. And they closed ranks, and they began the process of becoming the closely knit, strong, community-minded town that Fredonia is today.
I was just thinking about it. When the Fredonia Valley Bank, how long they've been there, So when you think about how many years, they were in the midst of that when they were starting up, huh?
That's exactly right. Their bank was built in 1894. Now, here's the funny thing. That bank was named the Fredonia Valley Bank of Kelsey. That was the incorporated name of the bank. And
wow.
I'm not sure, but it remained the Fredonia Valley Bank of Kelsey for many, 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 many years as far as their incorporation papers.
Wow. You talk about some rich history because they're still there.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And that area of town had the Fredonia Valley Bank, the Ordway Livery Stables. That's the ancestors of Linda and Linda Bennett. And there was the Kelsey Hotel. We had a big hotel, 2-story hotel.
I want the ledger from that thing. That's what I want to see.
Well, it burned. It burned in 1906, I think. And
did it have anything to do with that bar being open? Just saying.
I don't know. I doubt it.
No,
but there was a doctor that lived.
A lot of Fredonia burned, or the downtown area, correct?
Yeah, 1986.
Yes.
There were 3 brick buildings and other buildings that were there, what we called then, at that time, downtown Fredonia.
Wow.
And they did burn in 1986.
And the Night Riders didn't have anything to do with that.
No, not at that point.
But the Night Riders did have something to do with another business there in Fredonia burning, the W.C. Rice Tobacco Stimmery.
Yes.
It was a huge business, and it was located on the property that is now the Buddy Rogers Park, and the Night Riders did burn that.
I'll tell you, I think your town could have the biggest history plaque. I don't think that they build them that big. I want a movie done about that. You talk about some interesting history.
Pam has just touched on a very little. Whenever I need information, I go to Pam, Donnie Boone, Linda Baker Bennett. She mentioned the Ordways. When Sis Baker was alive, I talked to her because I was teaching history at Caldwell County and at the high school. So I talked to Sis and got a lot of information. But the book that Pam referenced to is full of information, and Fredonia is full of history.
Well, a lot of times we look toward movies and the exciting Old West and all of that stuff. But, really and truly, we've got a rich history in this area if you really bother to look for a few minutes. And Fredonia is just covered up in intrigue and politics and old Wild West stories right in the middle of Kentucky.
Pam, let me ask you a question. A few years ago, I went to Mr. Ted Fagan's. I had a professor from Kansas University with me. We went to Donnie Boone's and went to some of the cemeteries, and then we went to Mr. Fagan's. And he has had a lot of pictures and different things. Do you know if those are still in the store, or have they been donated to someone?
To the best of my knowledge, they're still in what was the old grocery store, T.R. Fagan grocery store, which they now use for their furniture business.
Wow.
And to the best of my knowledge, most of those items are still there. And I haven't been in that particular building in a little while, but I know he had a lot of those pictures that he had enlarged, and so they were on the walls surrounding. And Mr. Ted did love for people to come into his business, and he would love telling everyone about all his pictures and all of his history that he has located there.
I'll tell you what, Miss Pam, we're going to hear more from her because there's so many more stories to cover. And I know she's busy this morning, so I'll let her skedaddle. But we appreciate you being with us this morning, Miss Pam Faughn. And of course, I called her Rogers a while ago, but that works too. That was her maiden name. But before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, what does growing up there, and what is being from Fredonia? What does that mean to you?
Well, if you got just a minute, I will tell you.
I do.
I was born and raised in Fredonia, and my parents, Buddy and Dot Rogers, were very community-minded, and they dedicated themselves to being involved in service to the town that they loved. We don't have enough time to list all the ways they served Fredonia, but one example is my dad, Buddy Rogers, served the town in many ways, but one was at the American Legion ballpark So much so that it was renamed the Buddy Rogers Park several years ago, and it's still named that. My mother is currently the official city historian for Fredonia. Well, they instilled in me a love for Fredonia and its history, and what I learned, here's what I really learned from their example. It's what we do for ourselves dies with us, but what we do for others lives on and is immortal. And so it's been my privilege to follow in my parents' footsteps and to serve the hometown I love. And probably one of the most favorite projects that I have is the organization of the Fredonia Valley Heritage Society in 2007. And that organization's goal is to preserve the history and heritage of Fredonia for future generations. And like we've already discussed today, one of the ways we've done that is through 3 books that we've published. So I do love Fredonia, and I'm very proud to call it home. It's just such a unique little area, and I had a couple of things that I was going to tell you. I thought about its uniqueness, but I know you probably don't have time today. But it's just a place like no other in my mind and in my heart. And I just love my hometown.
Well, I'll tell you, you're not hearing the last of her, and because we've got some special little tidbits coming up. It's a secret. Don't tell nobody. But you're going to hear more from Pam very soon, and we appreciate that so much for you being with us this morning, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'd be glad to share more.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pam Faughn, and of course from the Heritage Society, Fredonia Valley. I'll tell you, Roy Jean, when you talk about you growing up, I mean, what is? Of course, you went to that school too.
Oh yes, and once you're a Fredonia Yellow Jacket, you're always a Fredonia Yellow Jacket. And as Pam said, it's the Fredonia Valley. It's just all the people that in that surrounding area, they'll pull together. I've seen when farmers, some of them were sick, some of them got injured, all the other farmers jumped in and did their crops. And I can remember one funeral for one of our farmers down there that you had several tractors lining the roads. And then, as Pam said, when you recognize the veterans, I don't think there's any community in Kentucky that does more to recognize the veterans of that area. And like I said, whenever I need information, Pam is one of the first ones I called. Donnie Boone has a lot of information on some of the cemeteries. And like I said, Linda Baker Bennett, she has a lot of the information as well. So there's a lot of people down there that contribute to the success of Fredonia and everything they do, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from Pam as you go along.
Well, now, what is one of your favorite memories as a kid in Fredonia? What when you look back, what was one of those favorite memories?
The only time I have ever been put in jail was in Fredonia. And it was on a Halloween night, and it was the guys I was with, they got into a little mischief, and I just happened to be along. I came up late after they'd done all that, and Mr. John Henry Fralix was the sheriff or the constable, whatever, police chief down there, and he marched us down the street and put us in what was called the jail at that time. Yeah.
Did that have anything to do with that saloon back in the 1800s that got built?
No, that wasn't
there's a grandma somewhere in the going, I told you not to build that. Yeah. So what in the world did you do to get put in jail, mister?
It wasn't me. It was just the crowd I was running with. You know how that goes.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here first. There's the Roy Jean Rogers arrest record.
But he never did lock the cell, so we got out.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I think is the same is, that community and the buddies that are running together and the kids that are out playing and, the Buddy Rogers Park, being full of kids playing. And that, I don't think that, that's a community that really kind of sticks together.
You've got all the surrounding small communities, Flat Rock, Farmersville, you can just spread out all over. The people in those communities, we consider ourselves to be from Fredonia. So Fredonia is a great place. Pam has a lot of interesting stories. The books, they're still available, I believe. They've got some, and we've got to preserve our history. And that is one way they're doing it, through those books. But my big thing is, your son, your daughter, how much do they know about Caldwell County history? How much do they know about Fredonia history, or the churches, or any of those, like this radio station? There's a lot of history there. I think we should go back in our high school and start teaching local history.
Well, I'll tell you, I think, again, that garners a, respect for, their community. And I think my son is very excited about history like that. He loves to hear his grandpa tell him about things that happen in the area.
And he needs to write that down.
That's the part that we're bad about. And I would love to, I don't know, I'm horrible about that. I would love to have that, because
I can go back to the tobacco barns when I was stripping tobacco. I was young, but my Uncle Frank Webb, Mr. Roy Francis, Mr. Hugh Francis, they were telling all these stories. Uncle Frank helped Sam Stigger, and they built a lot of these houses, but he was also telling about some of the events of the Night Riders. And all of that history, and I sat there and listened to it, and it just, I can remember part of it, but I should have written it down. And that's what your son, TJ, and all of them need to be doing, is their grandfathers and grandmothers are talking to them and telling them about them growing up. It needs to be written down.
Well, and of course, like one of my uncles, I can remember him talking about walking to Fredonia to go play basketball, because he played basketball for Fredonia. And by the way, you haven't lived till you've had those Yellow Jackets show up, all of a sudden in high school. Here come the Fredonia kids. They could play some ball. As I was a Lady Tiger, back in the day, and I can remember when the Fredonia girls come up and joined us. And of course, Pepper Chanel, I want to talk about a few of them this morning. Jenny Phelps, there was several of them that were playing, and Fralix. We were a little intimidated when those Fredonia kids hit the court.
It's like when I was coaching, I would tell my players, I said, you got to love the game. Those from Fredonia and the surrounding area, we played when there was snow on the ground. We played when there was wild chickens running around. You might get something on your hand, but you'd stop on the ball and you'd wipe it off on the grass and go ahead and play.
Right.
And that's where, we had some good teams. And the love of basketball is one of the things that was instilled in me when I was at Fredonia. And we had some great teachers. You go back, Mr. Herman, Brenda, and teachers like that, their legacy lives on.
Well, and I don't think we can talk about Fredonia history without talking about Mr. Faughn.
No.
And Mr. Dale Faughn is an institution and known across the country. He's a world record holder and for even just giving blood. The man, he's amazing. And I think that
he was my teacher. I've told everyone, I said, the reason I was like I was as a teacher is because I had to have 18 credits to graduate from Fredonia High School back then. 12 of those credits were under Mr. Faughn.
He taught several generations. He taught my mom and dad and me. So, I'm assuming
and then I was
daughter.
a colleague of his in the school. So, Mr. Dale Faughn, I asked his son here the other day how he's getting along. He's doing good. And,
Well, we had him on not too long ago, and I will tell you, a gentleman at heart that really and truly, you talk about a veteran that's got some stories.
Oh, yes.
That is a veteran that has stories. And those are some that I'm so glad that he took the time to write down and to document. When you talk about Iwo Jima.
He's got all those poetry books that he's written.
I'll tell you, if you have any time whatsoever to kind of do a little digging on it, Fredonia is a very interesting place to kind of dig around in and to read the history and to grab those books. There's books now.
The Barneses. You're looking at David and Will.
Barnes' store.
Yeah, well, that was in. That's a different
neck of the woods.
But David and they all grew up down in that area. So Fredonia is an interesting place. Lots of history. I hope you do have Pam back on.
We will. I will say I've talked to the Vincents recently. I'm hoping to talk to Dwayne in the next week and Mr. Elbert and the rest of those folks and of course Michelle, and we can't leave Jim Seibert out because we love him to death. I'll tell you, Mayor.
Let's try to leave Jim.
Well, no, because any mayor that jumps in a mud puddle, I'm all over that.
No,
I think that's.
Jim is a great guy. Now, hey, Linda Baker Bennett,
right?
Ordway. If you can get her on the phone or in, she would be a good one. But there's so many down there that have history. So
there really is. So it's going to go on for a while. This isn't the first and last one we're going to do. So be on the lookout for that because we're going to have some more Fredonia history next week, as well as some other things coming up with that. So we'll surprise you with that. I can't tell you everything. So we appreciate Mr. Roy Jean being with us this morning, and of course Miss Pam. And I'll tell you, this is one way to document it. That way we'll have it later on, and I'm hoping that people really get a kick out of it. So, hey, you know what? If you're in a little neck of the woods that you think that, hey, let's dig into that. Let us know. We'd love to hear that history. Coming up, we had talked about Little B's photography a couple of weeks ago. Thank you, Roy Jean. Thank you, Jason. Of course, Jason, love my Jason. He's on our Special Olympics basketball team, and he's an amazing human being. I love him to death. I don't think anybody mows a yard with more excitement than what Jason does. He's going to get that done one way or the other. Of course, we had talked to Miss Little B's photography, and I hear that you've got something going. Tell them who you are, what you do, and what you got going.
Hi, my name is
Whoop!
Kim.
Wait a minute. I guess I better turn you on first, huh? There we go.
Okay. My name is Kim, and I'm the photographer at Little B's Photography.
She's good, too, by the way.
Thank you. And I'm here to announce my senior reps. So
I'm excited about this.
I'm excited,
Okay,
too.
you need to explain to everyone, just to give you a little reminder, a little refresher, what is it our senior reps are doing?
So if you're a senior rep for Little B Photography, basically you're going to get your senior session for free. And after that, all you have to do is just tell your friends. Share it on social media. If people ask you where you got your pictures done, you send them my way. And every person that you refer will get, you will get a $25 print credit and $10 cash. And then whoever refers the most seniors to me at the end of the year gets like this huge prize. It's a mini fridge.
Basically,
microwave.
You're going to college, let me hook you up.
Yeah, pretty
That's
much.
what it ought to be called.
Yep.
There's all kinds of stuff in
Mini
it.
fridge, microwave, some drawers, a full-length mirror, an Apple gift card, a Walmart gift card. It's a big prize.
Well, and I thought it was so neat because our seniors, God bless their hearts, there's a lot of things that, even though we're going back to school and we're going to try to find some normal, there's still a lot of challenges, a lot of things that are, not going to be normal for these kids this year. And it breaks our heart. But I think things like this will make it a little bit easier, make it a little fun for them. And I think that this big prize pack, going after that, is kind of competitive. I love it to see kids competitive. And,
Me too.
As long as it's, even if I started to say as long as it's friendly. I mean, a little bit of Anyway, it's a lot of fun. So tell them who our people are.
Okay, so I ended up picking 5 people instead of 4.
I knew she would do it. She's like me. She don't know when to quit.
I really don't have a problem. But, okay, so if I butcher these names, I'm sorry. But my first one is Kyla McGowan from Caldwell County High School. And we got Chloe Shroom from Dawson Springs High School. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to say
That's okay.
this kid's last name right, but I'm going to try. Ben Futrell? Futrell? Okay. Well,
yes.
Okay. Well, look, you got it. I'm glad you know. But he's from Trigg County, so he's my other one. And then Adriana Galusha from Lyon County. And then Kelsey Adams from Caldwell County.
Well, bless their hearts. You talk about some good-looking seniors right there. They made some good-looking pictures too. So now you've got a pretty interesting photo shoot coming up too. That I do snooping. One of these days somebody's gonna get me for stalking because I do. I do a little snooping. But you've got an interesting photo shoot that I think is going to be pretty neat for October, too.
I literally cannot wait. I have not been, there's not a project I've done so far that I've been more excited for, but it's kind of to kick off fall and Halloween, fall, all the spooky stuff. That's my favorite. So it's like a witchy-inspired photo shoot. Basically, everybody just wears their spookiest outfit, and you just show up. There's no session fee. It's going to be in Dawson at the canoe rental place, kind of like on 109 going towards Hopkinsville.
Tradewater Kayak.
Yep.
They've been on the air.
Yeah, okay.
So, we know those folks.
Yep, well, that's where I'm going to do it at because they have that bridge right down by the water. It's super creepy.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, she says spooky. It would actually be neat to have a very dolled up little girl on a spookier looking location too.
Yep.
So I mean, you can really get creative.
I've done lots of sessions down there anyway. People love that bridge, but it had the perfect vibe I was going for that, like dark and creepy,
mysterious.
Yes,
kind of get in the mood for Halloween.
Yes, that bridge goes right into the woods there. I just love it.
And it doesn't have to be seniors either. It can be
that can be anybody that wants to show up. If you go to my Facebook page, you can see the event. It's pinned up at the top, and all you have to do is just hit going. And it's from 5:30 to 8, so just show up anytime during that. Okay. And then Audrey's actually helping me with that. So. And I'm
telling you, she's multi-talented. We love our Audrey around here.
Yes. And me and her connected, and we're going to do it together. So I'm really, really excited.
Well, I can't wait to see what everybody dresses up in. I've heard there's 50 people already that are interested in going.
There's
80
a ton. Something now.
Oh, my gravy. That's a lot.
Yes.
So if you're going to get into it, you need to kind of go ahead and get registered, talk to you about it.
Yep.
Give them a phone number, a website. If they missed maybe the names that were, now on your senior reps, tell them how they can find all that information and a phone number to call if they missed it.
Okay, so if you want to see the senior reps, I'm about to post on my Facebook page, Little B Photography. You can go to my website and check out my portfolio. The events tagged on my website, and then my phone number is 270 963-0935.
Little B's Photography on WPKY Princeton. We are so excited.
I am too. Thank you for having me.
You've got to contact her because she's a whole lot of fun. And, of course, we thank you for allowing the seniors to have something special this year and giving them an opportunity to and I know that you went out of your way to do an additional giveaway to add somebody else in there. So thank you for that.
No
we
problem
appreciate
at all.
that. And again, if you've got any questions from today, you can always hit our website at WPKYonline.com. A kind of a repeat of today's Coffee Talk will be on there a little later in the afternoon. So you can get all of that. And we appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. Again, don't forget the blood drive that was supposed to be a Cash Express this morning. They're having some mechanical issues with the blood mobile. So they have had to cancel that for the day. But you know what is on? I'm heading to Cozy Furniture. Right beside the Mullen Alley in Princeton. I'm going to be there from 10 till noon, which means I got to get some boogie in my britches and go. But 10 to noon out at Cozy, and it's their 3rd anniversary, and we're really looking forward to it. So come on out and see us. It's 1580 103.3 WPKY Princeton.
Need cash fast? ABC Finance is open with social distancing implementations in place. They believe it's more important now than ever to get a handle on your finances.
Hi, this is Jody Lamb at the Princeton ABC Finance location.
And this is Todd Morris at the Hopkinsville location.
At ABC Finance, we don't just provide loans, but we also provide valuable advice